Chapter 2. Welcome to another episode of our podcast where we explore the timeless teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, the ancient Indian scripture that offers a roadmap for a fulfilling and purposeful life. In today's episode, we dive into Chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, also known as the Yoga of Knowledge. This chapter is a crucial turning point in the Gita where Arjuna, the warrior prince, is confronted with the dilemma of whether to fight in the battle of Kurukshetra or to renounce the world and become a monk. As we unpack the teachings of this chapter, we'll explore some of the central themes, including the nature of the self, the role of duty, and the importance of detachment. To begin, let's set the scene. Arjuna is standing in the middle of the battlefield, surrounded by his army and the army of his cousins, the Kauravas. He is filled with doubt and despair, questioning the righteousness of the war and the futility of violence. Enter Lord Krishna, Arjuna's charioteer and spiritual guide, who begins to offer him a series of teachings that will help him see the situation in a new light. Krishna starts by reminding Arjuna of the nature of the self. He explains that the true self is not the body or the mind, but the eternal spirit that underlies all of existence. This spirit is indestructible and eternal, and it cannot be harmed by any weapon or circumstance. Krishna then goes on to explain the concept of dharma or duty. He tells Arjuna that as a warrior, it is his duty to fight for the sake of justice and righteousness, and that renouncing the battle would be an act of cowardice and selfishness. But Krishna does not stop there. He also emphasizes the importance of detachment, the ability to act without being attached to the fruits of our actions. He explains that detachment is the key to inner peace and freedom from suffering, as it allows us to act with equanimity and without being swayed by the ups and downs of life. As the chapter unfolds, Krishna offers Arjuna a glimpse of his true nature, revealing himself as the supreme consciousness that underlies all of creation. He shows Arjuna that everything in the universe is an expression of his divine power, and that by surrendering to him, one can attain true liberation. But Krishna doesn't impose his teachings on Arjuna. He offers them as a choice, a path to be followed or not. He encourages Arjuna to use his own discernment and make his own decision, based on his own understanding and intuition. And so, as the chapter comes to a close, Arjuna is transformed. He has gained a new perspective on life and death, on action and inaction, on duty and detachment. He sees the world in a new light and as a manifestation of the divine, and he is ready to fulfill his duty with courage and conviction. As we reflect on the teachings of Chapter 2, we can see how they apply to our own lives. We all face moments of doubt and uncertainty when we question our own purpose and the meaning of our actions. We all grapple with the tension between duty and desire, between attachment and detachment. By embracing the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita, we can find a way forward. We can discover the true nature of the self and the importance of duty and the power of detachment. We can learn to act with courage and compassion without being swayed by the highs and lows of life. And so, dear listeners, I invite you to take the teachings to heart, to embrace the yoga of knowledge and apply it in your own life, to see yourself not just as body and mind, but as a spiritual being connected to the divine, to understand your own duty, your own purpose, and to act with integrity and conviction, and to cultivate detachment, to let go of attachment to outcomes, and to find peace and equanimity within yourself. As we close this episode, I invite you to take a moment to reflect on these teachings. What resonates with you? What challenges you? How can you apply these teachings in your own life, in your own unique way? Remember, the Bhagavad Gita is not just a book, but a living tradition, a guide for living a fulfilling and purposeful life. And as we continue to explore its teachings, we can discover new depths of wisdom and insight that can transform our lives and our world. Thank you for listening to this episode of our podcast. Stay tuned for more episodes where we explore the timeless teachings of the Bhagavad Gita and other spiritual traditions. Until next time, thank you for listening and stay happy. Chapter 3. Welcome to another episode of our podcast on the Bhagavad Gita. Today, we're going to explore the third chapter of this ancient Indian text, which is widely regarded as one of the most profound and influential spiritual texts in the world. In this chapter, we'll be diving deep into the concept of Karma Yoga, the path of selfless action. We'll explore how this path can lead us to a state of inner peace, wisdom, and fulfillment, and how we can apply its teachings to our own lives, no matter what our background or beliefs may be. So sit back, relax, and let's journey into the world of the Bhagavad Gita. First, let's take a quick recap of the previous chapter. In chapter 2, we learned about the nature of the self, the soul, and the ultimate reality. We discovered that the true self is eternal, beyond birth and death, and that we can attain this realization through meditation and self-awareness. In chapter 3, we are introduced to the concept of Karma Yoga, which is the yoga of action. This path teaches us how to perform our duties and actions in a selfless way, without attachment to the results. By doing so, we can overcome the cycle of birth and death and attain liberation. The chapter begins with Arjuna asking Krishna about the difference between renunciation and selfless action. Arjuna is confused about which path to follow, as he sees both renunciation and action as valid paths to spiritual realization. Krishna explains that both paths can lead to the same goal, but that Karma Yoga is the path most suitable for Arjuna, as he is a warrior and his duty is to fight. Krishna emphasizes the importance of performing one's duties without attachment to the results, as attachment leads to bondage and suffering. Krishna says, "Do your duty, but do not have any attachment to the fruits of your actions. That is the way to attain the Supreme." This is the central teaching of Karma Yoga, to perform one's duties without any desire for personal gain or recognition. Krishna also explains that Karma Yoga is not about renouncing action, but rather about renouncing attachment to the results of the action. He says, "You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of your actions. Never consider yourself to be the cause of the results of your activities, nor be attached to inaction." In other words, we should perform our duties to the best of our abilities, but we should not be attached to the outcome. We should do what is right, what is just, and what is necessary, but we should not be motivated by personal gain or ego. Krishna also emphasizes the importance of performing one's duties without any expectation of reward or recognition. He says, "A self-realized person has no interest in the results of their actions, whether good or bad. They are fully absorbed in the self, and they see everything as a manifestation of the divine." This is the ultimate goal of Karma Yoga, to become self-realized, to see everything as a manifestation of the divine, and to act without any attachment to the results of our actions. Krishna also explains that the path of Karma Yoga is not easy. It requires discipline, self-control, and deep commitment to one's duties. He says, "One who is regulated in their habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga of action. In other words, we must be disciplined in all aspects of our lives, not just our spiritual practices. We must cultivate self-control and self-awareness in all areas, including our diet, our sleep, our recreation, and our work. Krishna also emphasizes the importance of performing our duties with a sense of detachment. He says, "The wise man acting with detachment should perform his duty without attachment for the sake of sacrifice alone." This means that we should not be attached to the results of our actions, but rather we should perform our duties as an act of sacrifice to a higher power. Krishna also warns against the dangers of inaction. He says, "Action is better than inaction. Even the maintenance of your body would not be possible without action." In other words, we must not use the concept of detachment as an excuse for inaction or laziness. We must still perform our duties to the best of our abilities, even if we are not attached to the outcome. Krishna also explains the difference between the ignorant and the wise. He says, "The ignorant work for their own profit, while the wise work for the welfare of the world without attachment to the fruits of their actions." This means that the wise person performs their duties with a sense of detachment and with a focus on benefiting others rather than just themselves. Krishna concludes the chapter by emphasizing the importance of surrendering our actions to a higher power. He says, "In all activities, just depend on me and work always under my protection. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me." This means that we should surrender our actions to a higher power and perform our duties with a sense of devotion and surrender. In summary, Chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita teaches us about the path of Karma Yoga, the yoga of action. This path teaches us to perform our duties without attachment to the results and to act with a sense of detachment, discipline, and self-awareness. The ultimate goal of Karma Yoga is to become self-realized, to see everything as a manifestation of the divine, and to act without any attachment to the results of our actions. We can apply the teachings of Karma Yoga to our own lives by performing our duties to the best of our abilities, without attachment to the outcome, and with a focus on benefiting others rather than ourselves. So that's it for today's episode of the Bhagavad Gita podcast. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita Chapter 3, and that you can apply these teachings to your own life. Until next time, keep practicing, keep learning, and keep growing.